to summarize all the different neuroscience concepts that we need to know, just very briefly. Some of it you already know. For example, on your right hand side, all the three things. We know brain has unlimited potential, and the reason is many, in which is for us to realize ourselves to the fullest potential. That is why we said evolving is nothing but fulfilling our potential, and when we get fulfilled, or that fulfillment will both help us and also help others. It's very important, and that's why we have that unlimited potential of the brain. And then brain is like a biggest pharmacy. Why we know? Because every thought, emotion, feeling releases a chemical. Brain works like a genie, like a magician. Whatever we ask for, it is ready to give us. And we heard about the negativity bias, that we all innately have this negativity bias within us, irrespective of whether somebody is a saint or a scientist, president or a pauper, or a CEO or a clerk. Everybody has this negativity bias, and there is no magic pill that comes in a colored bottle that you can take and get rid of this negativity bias. This is only through awareness, only through education, and only you can change it yourself. Because yes, we feel frustrated, we don't know how to get rid of it, but much more than us, we can recognize the negativity in others, but we also have to develop the self-awareness to such an extent that we can figure out our own negativity bias and to be able to overcome right away. So that is about brain having the negativity bias. And we heard that if we can change our thoughts, if we change our emotions, if we change our feelings, if we change our memory, if we change our perception, if we change our belief system in a particular way, we can actually change the very structure of the brain. And that process is called neuroplasticity. And the last point on this slide is, what's a thought? Thought is nothing but an idea that comes many a times again and again and again and again. And when these thoughts occur again and again and again, we start believing it. This is the problem. Because many a times, especially hurtful thoughts, especially our past memory and the experience that we have, which causes some grief or suffering, they come as repetitive thoughts. Because they are repetitive, we believe. However, the most important neuroscience concept we need to understand is, not all thoughts are true. Every thought is real in the sense, because every thought we get, there will be electrical changes in the brain and a chemical will be released. So yes, thoughts are real, but they are not always true. Because of our negativity bias, it is like wearing colored glasses. Once we have this negativity, everything what the other person does is going to be wrong. That is the perception through which we are going to be looking at the other person. So we need to question our own thoughts to see if these thoughts are true or false. That's what I call as put your thoughts to a true or false test. And then, but be objective, because if we keep rationalizing, but I know this is true because this has happened, again that rationalizing and judging and blaming is one of the worst possible negative thought we can think of. Because as Vasant was talking about the termite population in the nature, it is very similar to the termite population in our brain. Blaming others or blaming ourselves, and rationalizing or justifying our own actions, our own thoughts, our own feelings are the worst possible ants that you can think of. Why? Because if we start blaming and if we start justifying ourselves, rationalizing ourselves, we will never ever be able to learn. I feel like this because he said this, even when I had not done something wrong. We keep going back to putting the blame on the external situation or the person. Again, one of the most important things about evolving is, irrespective of where the problem is, if we can find the solution within ourselves, that is the surest way to evolve. Yes, there are quick fixes. It will be very easy to fix the system and what not. But we know we will never be able to fix everything that is happening in the external world or in other people. It is us who have to change our worldview and how we are perceiving our perceptions to be able to fine tune. So the surest way to evolve is to find the solution within ourselves. We heard that every thought releases a chemical, and not just a thought, every emotion or a feeling also releases chemicals. We get a thought and that releases a chemical that produces a feeling. Depending on the feeling, feelings also release chemicals. It releases a chemical producing thoughts, similar thoughts. So we get into this loop, vicious loop of hurt thoughts, memory. These are thoughts, right? Somebody misunderstood me, said something. It's a sad thought, hurtful thought, releasing hurtful chemicals or a negative chemical, producing negative feelings. So the negative feeling produces negative chemicals, producing negative thoughts. It becomes a vicious cycle. Why is this so important? Those negative chemicals just don't stay in the brain. They get distributed throughout the body, through our blood vessels, through our nerves, and this is what ultimately affects our health, both physical health and mental health. So the first and foremost we will see, once we forgive, how right away we feel that lightness. When we go through that forgiveness exercise, the therapy that we are going to do, you will see how light you become, light-hearted, light-bodied, because it has an immediate effect. And if it has to be repeated again and again, this is when we will know our health also many a times will improve because of that. The last two parts in this is, we talked about ants, automatic negative thoughts. Look at this, most of the ants are false. So if we can recognize an ant, if we become self-aware and recognize, but don't keep focusing on the ant, you have to be able to overcome and get over it. As long as you're aware of that it is an ant, and right away you can say most ants are false, so this must be false. Let me not think it that way and start thinking from the opposite way. And everything what I am saying, it has been codified in our scriptures, especially in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Each one has a Sanskrit sutra for that matter. But now we have scientific evidence for all of this, and it is much easier for most of us to be able to understand and accept the scientific perspective rather than doing adhyayana on the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. But all of these have been codified in our scriptures. This is the most empowering aspect of our scriptures. And lastly, just consider these ants are just bad brain habits, because ants have become a habit. These are hardwired. Another name for habit is hardwired. So these ants are hardwired, so these are habits, and these are bad habits. Let me just get rid of these bad habits, and then let me use my buddhi, my higher center of the brain, my conscious mind, to be able to replace these negative thoughts